Okay, so welcome back, Elaine, for another Art of Letting Go live session. So let's jump straight into today's quote. It'll lead us nicely into some teaching. It's all about higher purpose, finding your extraordinary purpose, special function. We'll talk about playing the infinite game instead of finite games. And that'll lead us nicely into our lesson. And there's also a section on what is creation. So if we can cover all of that in an hour and a half, we'll be doing quite well. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Okay, so you can read that. Let's make it a bit bigger for you. Great quote today, actually, one of my favorites. No, what's going on? Okay. All right, so if you can read that quote for the day to kick it off from a guy called Patanjali, who was an Indian yogi, mystic, philosopher, and author. Oh, what's happened? Okay. Can you see that, Elaine?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, if you can read that quote for us.
Yeah. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds, your mind transcends limitations, your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a great, new, and wonderful world.
Yeah, so this is by, as I said, Patanjali, who was renowned. Really, his great work was to organize the ancient Vedic teachings of ancient India and their practices into an 8-branch spiritual path that he called yoga, which means yoke or union in Sanskrit, the language of ancient India. And he described both the theory and the practice of this now newly formed, created, named practice called yoga in the Yoga Sutras. Before that, it existed, but didn't exist as yoga as we know it. So he was, I guess, the creator of yoga, certainly the formulator of the eight limb system of yoga. So he also wrote a treatise on Sanskrit grammar, a medical text. So he was quite a prolific writer in his day. Remember, this is days before typewriters and computer and AI generated text. So all had to be handwritten. But writing the Yoga Sutras was undoubtedly his extraordinary project that made yoga available to the world as a system for the transformation of consciousness and ultimate liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And his inspired work has had a profound impact on the lives of hundreds of millions, possibly even billions of people who've practiced yoga in some form since he lived in the 2nd century after AD CE, after the birth of Christ. And it's one of the foundations of the Art of Letting Go program. So the yogic principles are embedded into the program, often not explicitly, but in every breath break you do, in every meditation, in the breath work course we do at the beginning of the year, these yogic practices and principles come in. So really, it's a blend of Art of Letting Go programs, a blend of the best of Eastern wisdom as expressed in yoga, the yogic system, and the West, which comes from Course in Miracles. But it's not really about the history of yoga. It's not the point of the message. It's not even about the Art of Letting Go program. The point is really to inspire you to find your own great and extraordinary project that will help you and others to transcend the self-imposed limitations of the ego or belief in separation, expand your awareness, and start living in the brave new world Patanjali points to in this quote, which is the world transformed in your perception, or what Yeshua calls the real world in A Course in Miracles. But if you seek this outside yourself in an attempt to find meaning and purpose through achieving something external, you'll inevitably fail to find it because it doesn't lie outside of yourself, capital self. Rather, it's about looking within ourselves to connect to what Yeshua has called the universal inspiration. He also refers to this mostly in the Course as the Holy Spirit. An alternative Art of Letting Go language we call the remembrance of perfect love. So that inspiration, that spirit, that remembrance guides you to do the things you that may develop into an extraordinary project that will in turn help you and others to progress on your hero's journey. So as an example, let's talk about this club, this program called the Art of Letting Go. It's a good example of how the process works. So 6 years ago, just over 6 years ago, 2018, 6.5 actually, was the middle of 2018. After a few years of not really teaching much except a weekly breathwork and meditation class, I felt quite dissatisfied with what I was doing at the time. I was selling card payment and trying to sell corporate finance solutions to businesses, neither of which was going particularly well. And a strong call to go back to teaching the course, to teaching meditation and breathwork in a way that would reach more people. And then, I also needed to earn an income. So I also needed to consider the financial aspect of it. The obvious way to do that was through an online course or program, something I'd known for years, but I hadn't acted on. 5 years before that, I'd gone, I need to really get online. And it just hadn't happened for various reasons. I'd had a lot of change in my life. I'd moved countries, changed my whole career, had a family. So I guess that, disrupted that plan. But in 2018, it felt like, okay, it's time now. So I began to take small steps in that direction. I bought and studied a book on how to market your expertise online called Expert Secrets, which I can highly recommend. It's kind of like a manual of, okay, well, how do you start an expert kind of business? How do you put together a webinar? It tells you about the technology. And it suggested that I run a free 6-week beta course to test my ideas and get feedback from the participants. So that's what I did. I built up enough contacts to get a number of people to do the beta course free. It had a pretty transformational impact on people's lives. It evidently needed improvement, but there was something there that had worked. So I worked on it and its marketing for a year. I ran it again as a paid course in 2019. And at the end of that course, I didn't want to leave people hanging after only doing 5 chapters of the text and 35 lessons of the workbook. So I offered an ongoing service and subscription to guide them through the entire Course in Miracles book in a 1-year program. And since then, as you know, Elaine, I've dedicated a lot of my working time to delivering and developing this program. It's been an ongoing work in progress for the last 5 years. It's now to get to the stage we're now at, and a lot of miraculous help and guidance, including financial windfalls, to help me continue. And then it became evident through this process of running, particularly the live discussion and meditation sessions over 6 years, that a new terminology to make the course more understandable to everyone was necessary. And so, when I started, I didn't know this would be the case, but so I began a project to translate the course into an alternative language, which I'm pleased to say is almost finished. Obviously, one can always refine it, but just doing the psychotherapy supplement at the moment, and that's the last section that wasn't done. So we're coming to the end of that process, and then it will be, every section will be completed. There's one or two missing somewhere in between there, but in the coming year, I'll fix that. And then you have a translated version of the course, which makes it easier to understand. I didn't know that that would be the case when I had that first inclination to start a course back in 2018. I had no idea that it would develop as it had, but there was a seed of an idea. There was something that I followed. It felt like something important. It felt like something that was worthy, a special function, what the course would call a special function, a higher purpose, what Simon Sinek would call a just cause, what Patanjali calls an extraordinary project. So it's not really, it's just use my example and the example Art of Letting Go course and program just as an example of how it can happen. The point is to find your own special function, your own extraordinary project, a just cause, as Simon Sinek calls it, that advances you on your extraordinary hero's journey of awakening to the knowledge of your true self and the real world that will help you to correctly perceive. So it fits within this whole process of healing, of at-one-ment. Your special function tests you, it challenges you, it forces you to grow in ways that you wouldn't have if you hadn't pursued it. And that's really where it comes into its own as part of the awakening of your mind to the truth of who you really are. Simon Sinek, who's a well-known business speaker, also talks about the infinite game in a business context, but the infinite game applies to our lives as well. So his whole point really about the infinite game is that you don't really win at business in the same way as you can't really win at life. It's a process. It's ongoing. You can't say, right, I won at business. You have projects, you have goals that are finite, but you can't really win the game of business, just like you can't win the game of life. It's an ongoing process. You might have a temporary victory at some specific objective or goal, but that doesn't mean that you've won the whole game. In fact, the idea of winning business or winning life is a ridiculous idea because it's a process. How do you win at life? How do you win at business? And that's the point he's making. So what's going to drive you is the why. Why are you doing it? And is your motivation finite, i.e., I want to achieve a specific goal or outcome, or is it infinite? Is it something that's timeless and talks about universal values? So he gives an example in this talk, which I don't know if you listened to, of Apple and Microsoft. And he says, well, Apple, he went to he gave a talk at an Apple conference, and they spent the whole time talking about how they could become better as a company, how they could serve their customers better, how they could produce better products to serve the needs of their customers better, and become the best organization they could become. And they didn't talk about the competition at all. And then he went to a Microsoft conference, and Microsoft and the speakers and executives there spent the whole time talking about how they were going to beat Apple. So the one is playing a finite game. How do we win over this rival? And the other one is playing an infinite game, saying how do we become better ourselves? Do you see the difference? A very big difference. The one is really led by values, and the other one is defined by specific outcomes. And his criticism of business and organizations, the moment is that most of them are playing the finite game, not the infinite game. In the same way as people do. We play a finite game when we follow and aim for specific objectives rather than thinking about the bigger picture and saying, well, it's really about my honoring my truth, my values, my higher self, and I'm going to live in a way that does that. And then whatever happens in terms of the finite objectives, so be it. So that's really the key difference between a finite and an infinite game. And most people are still playing finite games in their lives and in their businesses because they define their success by specific objectives that they want to achieve. And if they don't achieve those objectives, then they think they've failed. Whereas the infinite game says, let's try and be better. Let's try and improve. Let's try and develop ourselves as into the higher self, into the true self that we really are, and express have and express those qualities into the world. Now, it doesn't really matter what specific objectives you attain or not. What matters is who you are. You see the difference. Who you are is infinite. Your awareness and your true self are infinite, whereas the finite is about what's temporary, what comes and goes, what therefore is illusory. So finite equals illusory, and infinite equals real. That's another way of framing it. And if you focus on the unreal, then what can you expect but disappointment? Because the unreal never lasts. The infinite is infinite and it's eternal. It lasts forever. So it can never disappoint you because it never fades away. So that's why we focus on playing the infinite game of life rather than the finite game in this course. And you play the infinite game best by letting go. Whenever you let go of your attachment to finite outcomes, you are playing the infinite game. Does that all make sense, Elaine? You got any thoughts or comments or questions on any of that?
Yeah, no, it does. Yes, yeah, no, I've watched it before.
So just another way of framing it. And he's really a teacher of God in his specific industry. He's speaking to businesses and writing books and so on, but he's teaching the truth to that audience in a way that is packaged for them, that they can accept. So he'll use language like finite versus infinite games, but really what he's teaching is the truth through that mechanism of teaching, through these concepts. Finite is unreal and infinite is real. And just change the language and he could be giving a talk on a course, except he relates it to business and talks about business examples so that people in his audience can understand it and they can start getting it and applying it in their lives, in their organizations. And that's what a good teacher does. They make it context specific and they teach people at where they are. If he went in and he did a talk to a major company and he talked about illusion and truth, probably wouldn't go down so well, would it? But if he talks about finite versus infinite games, then that's a message that they want to hear, listen to, and hopefully apply. So we all have our path. He's a teacher of God in his specific industry and niche, and he's found a special function. That's what he's called to do. He had his own, awakening. He wasn't very happy. He went through some dark times, depression, and then out of that failure came a rebirth into Simon Sinek, the motivational speaker, who is now, very well known and no doubt has made a lot of money from his gift of speaking and communicating to people in his chosen niche of business. So he's found his special function, his higher purpose, his just cause. And, it encourages us, people like him, encourage us to find ours. Okay, so what is yours? That doesn't mean you have to go and speak to hundreds or thousands of people and become famous in any way. It just means find that purpose and follow it, however that looks. That might just be doing something quite simple, and not anything that a lot of people are going to necessarily know about. So it doesn't mean that you have to become a world famous figure or well known in your industry. It doesn't. It just means you follow your calling and you let yourself be guided. And whatever will happen, then will happen. If you're meant to become a Simon Sinek, then you will. And if you're not, you won't. It doesn't really matter because ultimately it's the learning and the growth that you have, that you attain. That's important. Okay, so that's a nice precursor lead into our lesson for today, which is all about overcoming fear. And we know that what limits us from attaining any higher kind of purpose is always fear. Why don't people follow their purpose in life? Why don't they say, well, I just want to do what I love doing? Because they fear they'll fail. They fear that they won't have enough money. That's a big one, because often the world doesn't pay your higher purpose particularly well. No one's going to employ you on a set corporate salary to follow your passion, are they? It's something you've got to figure out for yourself. So there's less worldly security. You've got to face and overcome fear. And I would argue that the journey of entrepreneurship is really about doing that. How do you face and overcome your fear consistently? And you show up and you do that over and over again. That's the question. So let's explore that in today's lesson. Let's do, probably got time, we've got an hour. So let's do what is creation. And then we'll go into the lesson, which is about overcoming of fear. Lesson is, I gladly make the sacrifice of fear, or I gladly let go of all fear. Fear is really symptomatic of the ego's entire thought system. Okay, so let's jump in then, shall we? And let's look at today. This insert, I don't think we've looked at this because it's relatively new, 3 days old. So what is creation is the question, and he answers that question in 5 paragraphs. So shall I read in the original? You read the alternative, Elaine?
Yeah.
Okay, so creation is the sum of all God's thoughts, in number infinite, and everywhere without all limit.
Creation is the extension of perfect love and the totality of its awareness, infinite and everywhere without any limit.
Only love creates, and only like itself.
Only perfect love creates or extends, and only like itself.
There was no time when all that it created was not there.
There was no time when all that it extends was not there.
Nor will there be a time when anything that it created suffers any loss.
Nor will there be a time when anything that it extends suffers any loss.
Forever and forever are God's thoughts exactly as they were and as they are, unchanged through time and after time is done.
Perfect love's awareness is eternally the same, unchanged throughout time, and after time is over. And from the top, creation is the extension of perfect love and the totality of its awareness, infinite and everywhere without any limit. Only perfect love creates or extends, and only like itself. There was no time when all that extends was not there, nor will there be a time when anything that it extends suffers any loss. Perfect love's awareness is eternally the same, unchanged throughout time and after time is over. So it's just talking about the creation is the extension of perfect love and the totality of awareness, infinite and everywhere and no limits. And it only creates, perfect love only creates and extends like itself. And perfect love's awareness has eternally always been the same, unchanged throughout time and after time is over.
Yeah, so I've translated God's thoughts as perfect love's awareness. God's thoughts are not thoughts as we know them. They're not subject-object dualistic thoughts. Thinking about the world, thinking about apparent objects in the world, people, places, things, events, circumstances. That's got nothing to do with God's thoughts. So to facilitate that understanding, just changed it to perfect love's awareness. Yeah. So perfect love's awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, is eternally the same. There's no change to any of that. Exactly as they were and as they are, unchanged through time and after time is done. They're just using language to point us to a reality that transcends language. And I've just changed the terminology to help that process. God's thoughts, I don't think it's necessarily the best way of framing it, because what we tend to think of with thoughts is, oh, well, God thinks like humans do. And God's thinking about this, and God's thinking about that, and God has multiple thoughts. Well, hang on, that just the thoughts would indicate that that's not the case. And God's awareness is one awareness. So how can you have multiple thoughts then? You see, how can you have many different thoughts if there's only one singular awareness? There's a paradox just in God's thoughts, isn't there?
Mm.
God's thought might have been more accurate. God's thought or God's awareness, perfect love's awareness, is eternally the same, unchanged through time and after time. So there's no change to that fundamental awareness that we call God, ever. It does not change. It doesn't have multiple aspects, all kinds of different thoughts. It just has one singular awareness. And that's where this section is pointing us to, that what is creation is that singular awareness. And he's just using, again, a term as a teaching aid. Creation is typically a Christian term. It's used in some other spiritual traditions. So he's using that term to teach us the nature of reality, to teach us what it really is. Okay, so let's have a look-see at the next one. Happy to go on?
Yeah.
God's thoughts are given all the power that their own creator has.
Perfect love's awareness is given all the power that its own source has.
For he would add to love by its extension.
For it adds to love by its extension.
Thus his son shares in creation and must therefore share in power to create.
And so its extension shares in this extension and must therefore share in the power to extend.
What God has willed to be forever one will still be one when time is over, and will not be changed throughout the course of time, remaining as it was before the thought of time began.
And what pure formless awareness, perfect love, intends to be forever one, will still be one when time is over, and will not be changed throughout the course of time, remaining as it was before the thought of time began.
From the top.
Perfect love's awareness is given to all the power that its own source has, for it adds to the love by its extension, and so its extension shares in this extension and must therefore share in the power to extend. What pure formless awareness of perfect love intends to be forever one will still be one when time is over and will not be changed throughout the course of time, remaining as it was before the thought of time began. It's just talking about this perfect love's awareness and just about how time intends to be forever one, will still be one when time is over. So it's just ever unchanging and remaining as it was before the thought of time began. It's just
So time, space, everything that happens in time and space are illusory. These are not true or real thoughts. Only this pure formless awareness that doesn't change is real. So reality and what is permanent or eternal go hand in hand. That's what this is saying. And God is willed. So what pure formless awareness of perfect love intends, God's will is struggles to translate because we're talking in different dimensions. God is willed to be forever one, will still be one when time is over. So God intends, again, is just trying to use language to explain what's beyond language. What pure formless awareness of perfect love intends to be forever one. Maybe we should just say, as established as forever one, will still be one when time is over, will not be changed throughout the course of time. That's what he means by God is willed to be forever one. It's established, it is forever one. And no amount of time can change that. Cannot be changed by the course of time, remaining as it was before the thought of time began. So it's taking us to before the idea of separation. If we have a look at this diagram, sent into hell, before the idea of separation, before that tiny mad idea, there's pure formless awareness of perfect love, and that's is still there. That hasn't changed one bit. So there's this whole alternate reality going on in a dream world, in a false world created by the idea of separation, but pure formless awareness of perfect love continues unchanged at the same time. So all through time, if you look at it in another way, all through time, you follow the timeline, the various circumstances and events that happen in our lives, some of which are depicted on the timeline. All the while, as that's happening, this pure formless awareness of perfect love remains unchanged. It's always there. No matter what we're thinking or feeling, this awareness is always there, and it's always available to us if we choose to go there. What helps us get there is the letting go process, forgiveness, as the Course calls it. Helps us to identify with this awareness while we're seemingly going along this timeline and experiencing these various events in time. We still have a choice to go into this awareness and bring this awareness down into the whatever situation it is we're dealing with and transform our perception of it. And that process is the Holy Spirit's process function, and that's how we heal. It's to access this awareness no matter what seems to be happening, bring this awareness into our lives and allow it to help us to make decisions and take actions based on the idea of oneness as opposed to the idea of separation. And then everything flows forward based on that awareness differently, and it changes the course of our lives. And that's how the Holy Spirit then comes into the world and becomes manifest. We've been through this before, but it's good to just remind ourselves beginning of a new year. Does that make sense, Elaine?
It does. Mm-hmm.
You see how these these concepts all they interlock. Whether you look at it as a diagram like that, or you go to the descent into hell, or there's the Holy Trinity diagram. They're just looking at it the same thing from a different perspective to give you a different view of the same truth. All right, so happy to move on to number 3.
Yes.
All right, so creation is the opposite of all illusions, for creation is the truth.
Yeah, oops, just here. Extension is the opposite of all illusions, for extension is the truth.
Okay, extension is the pure formlessly aware extension of perfect love. For in extension, sorry, I'm reading wrong. Creation is the Holy Son of God. For in creation is his will complete in every aspect, making every part container of the whole.
Yeah. Extension is the pure formless awareness extension of perfect love. For in extension is its awareness complete in every aspect, making every part container of the whole.
Yeah, so it's the pure formlessly aware extension of perfect love. So when we are in that mind, in that awareness, then there's no difference between the source of that awareness and its extension, right? They become one awareness. So it's our job to merge back with our source. Extension becomes the source, and that's the mystical merging of the Father and the Son. And we just merge back into pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's really very simple. There's nothing actually mystical about it. We're just returning our mind to our original awareness, which hasn't changed. We've just think we've changed it, and we've gone into a delusion of another mind and another self and another reality that doesn't really exist. And the spiritual awakening is just going back to our original awareness that has always been there, but now, given that this is going on, is covered over, is obscured by all the illusions of separation that we've invented. Okay. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Oneness is forever guaranteed to be perfect, eternally held. So again, just teaching us the unchanging, perfect nature of this loving awareness, reminding us that it is absolutely perfect. There's no imperfection. There's no spot upon its innocence, no blemish on its innocence. It cannot be partially. You can't have this pure awareness and then say at the same time, oh well, there's separation going on and there's a bit of guilt and sin and fear and attack thoughts in there. It's one or the other. It's either completely pure and perfect and doesn't know at all about separation, or separation is the truth. That's the dichotomy of the non-dual teachings. It's one or the other, and you just have to choose, and you choose in every moment with how you choose to react. Okay, so let's go on to number 4. We are creation, we the sons of God.
As the extension of perfect love, we are creation or extension.
We seem to be discrete and unaware of our eternal unity with Him.
We seem to be separate and unaware of our eternal unity with perfect love.
Yet back of all our doubts, past all our fears, there still is certainty.
Yet behind all our doubts and past all our fears, there is still certainty.
For love remains with all its thoughts, its sureness being theirs.
For love remains with all its thoughts, its sureness being theirs.
God's memory is in our holy minds, which know their oneness and their unity with their Creator.
Perfect love's memory is in our pure minds, which know their oneness and their unity with their source.
Let our function be only to let this memory return, only to let God's will be done on earth, only to be restored to sanity, and to be but as God created us.
Let our function be only to let this memory return, only to let perfect love's awareness come to everyone, only to be restored to sanity, and to be only as perfect loving awareness extends us. From the top?
Yep.
As the extensions of perfect love, we are creation or extension. We seem to be separate and unaware of our eternal unity with perfect love. Yet behind all our doubts and past all our fears, there is still certainty. For love remains with all its thoughts, its sureness being theirs. Perfect love's memory is in our pure minds, which know their oneness and their unity with their source. Let our function be only to let this memory return, only to let perfect love's awareness come to everyone, only to be restored to sanity, and to be only as perfect love awareness extends us. Just saying, being this extension of perfect love, we are the creation or the extension from our eternal unity with perfect love. But behind all our doubts and fears, there is still certainty, because love still remains in our thoughts, and the memory will return only to let the perfect love's awareness come to all of us and restore sanity, and to be only as perfect loving awareness extends us. We're just one part of this.
We're all part of the same.
Yeah.
The same awareness. We all have the same function, and our function is only to remember this. Make that my function. Makes it more personal. Behind all my doubts, past all my fears, there is still certainty. So acknowledges the fears and the doubts. Love remains with all its thoughts, its sureness being theirs. Perfect love's memory is to let this memory return, only to let perfect love's awareness come to everyone, only to be restored to sanity, be only as perfect love extends me. Yeah. So this is a call to listen only to one voice, to surrender to the remembrance of perfect love, being the Holy Spirit, and allow that to guide all our thoughts, words, and actions. And then we become extended as our source extends us. We merge with that source, we become one with it, and that's our only function here, is to once again become the awareness that we truly are. All right, so let's go to number 5 then. Our Father calls to us.
Our source calls to me.
We hear his voice and we forgive creation in the name of its creator, holiness itself, whose holiness his own creation shares, whose holiness is still a part of us.
I hear its voice and let go of all blocks to extension in the name of its source. Pure formless awareness of perfect love itself, whose perfect loving awareness its own extension shares, and whose perfect loving awareness is still a part of me and everyone. And from the top, our source calls to me. I hear its voice and let go of all blocks to extension in the name of its source, pure formless awareness of perfect love itself, whose perfect loving awareness its own extension shares, and whose perfect loving awareness is still a part of me and everyone. Just saying, our source is calling to us, and we hear the voice to let go of all these blocks in the name of its source, is the pure formless awareness of perfect love. And it's just saying that this is in all of us, and it's part of me and in everyone.
Exactly. I and the Father are one. Yeshua said that. It was quoted in the Bible. I'm saying that. This is saying the same thing. I and the Father are one because it's one and the same awareness. And that's not really actually that complicated or difficult or mystical, is it? There's just one awareness. And everyone is that awareness. They just don't know it. The mystery comes in when we start trying to go into the ego and saying, well, then how does the ego exist? And why does the ego exist? And why do we have separation? Why is there so much pain and suffering if there's only loving awareness? And on the questions go.
Mm-hmm.
The answer's simple. No, there's only one awareness, and all other awareness is false and just needs to be recognized as such and let go of. You don't have to think those thoughts. You don't have to dwell in that awareness at all. It's your choice.
Hmm. Yeah, yes, it's true. Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of us, we're aware of that awareness, but we still vacillate, don't we? Even though we know that that's much better for us to be in that being awareness. And it's strange how we still keep vacillating and letting that ego sort of speak louder. Because,
Hmm.
I appreciate, I know the beingness, and it's really not conceptual at all. It's a very quiet, peaceful little place, and yet, yeah, we still allow that noisy ego to just, you know, strange.
It's
You
very
know,
strange. That's why Yes was saying it's a very strange world. It's a very strange,
mm,
impossible situation you've got yourself into.
yeah,
You're
it is.
believing in something you're not. And it doesn't
Yes,
help, it doesn't work, it doesn't serve you. There's a lot of pain and suffering that comes from it, and yet you still want to believe it. This is very curious. Why do you
yeah, it
want
is.
to do
It's
that?
curious
Hmm.
because it's so much more peaceful being in the non-conceptual, quiet being.
Hmm.
And, a lot of us have recognized that state. Maybe some who haven't, they call them people the 3D world, don't they? They're still asleep.
Hmm.
But I guess most people are aware of their being, aren't they? This quiet little place, I think.
Well,
I'm not sure.
I think everyone has had some glimpse of it, some experience
Yes.
of it, but to be fully aware of it is another matter entirely. I think most people in this world are not. If they were fully aware of it, they wouldn't stay here for very long,
No. Well,
as Yeshua says. So, it's a process of that awareness starting to become stronger. That's what the awakening process is. You become more
mm.
and more aware of this fundamental awareness that you are, and that we call awakening to who you really are, awakening to your true self.
So
And that's
really,
a process
anybody,
that can take years.
yeah, oh yeah. So, like, say someone, for me, example, I'm aware of my awareness, and I know how peaceful and quiet it is. And so, are most of us in that situation where we're aware of this awareness? And
I think not, Elaine. I mean, you're fairly unusual in that you do this kind of work repeatedly with discipline, 3, 4 times a week we do sessions, you're practicing. I
right,
don't think most people are not doing that. There are people on a spiritual paths, no doubt, and but I think they're in the minority. Most
so
people.
these are the people it's a big buzzword, the 3D. They're the ones that are apparently still asleep, are
Yeah,
they?
if you
Yeah,
believe in the 3D world and you think that
yeah.
that's reality, then yeah, you're still asleep because you're not aware of who you
So you
really
just
are and that there's a reality beyond the 3D world of time and space.
so those that are moving further from that, the 5D world. What is there, a 4D world?
Well,
Or
ultimately, there's no, dimensions are all part of the ego. So you can have as many dimensions. Dimensions basically means split mind.
oh, I see. Right.
Di
Yeah.
means two, mens means mind. So dimens means split mind, dualistic mind. So however many dimensions you have, it's still part of the split mind.
I
And
see.
a lot of people don't understand this. People who, oh, well, I'm in the 5D world, therefore that's superior to the 4D or the 3D.
Mm,
Oh, and I'm going into the 6D world now. Aren't I special? What
right.
does it even mean? What is that? What do those
Yeah,
definitions
exactly.
mean in
Yes,
truth?
because I
Because
hear
in
it a
truth, it's
lot.
all illusion, right? There,
Yeah.
there is only one awareness. By
Right.
definition, that one awareness is singular. There's only one awareness, not multiple awarenesses. There's not many levels of one
Right. Yeah, because I do get a bit confused with all this 3D and
awareness.
5D and
But it's still dualistic thinking. You see, that's the problem. You're still in
right.
duality.
They're still in the
So, as
conceptual.
enlightened as these people may claim to be, they don't really understand perfect oneness yet, because in perfect oneness, there are no levels. There are
Right.
no dimensions. It's just pure awareness, one singular awareness in which everyone unites. Everyone is the same in that. And that
Mm.
is the fundamental reality of every sentient being in the universe, that they are that one awareness, that very essence of life or awareness, which gives them what we call life, is what they are.
Yeah.
And you can't
Yes.
break that down or segment it or create levels to that. As soon as you do that, then you're in the mind of illusion, the ego.
Yeah. Yes.
Now you've created levels and splits and definitions and try to segment reality, which is
Mm.
one perfect oneness, into something that's now got aspects that are different, separation.
Yeah. Right.
See, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Mm. Yeah. It's just I've
So
heard it
it's
so many
either
times.
perfectly
Yeah.
one or it's separate and nothing in
Hmm.
between. You can't sort of say, oh, well, it's one, but it has aspects of separation in it.
Yeah.
Non-dual teaching says it's either perfectly one, and that's the end of it. There's no separation can exist, or separation is true, and then oneness cannot be true. Because how can you have perfect oneness at the same time as you have all these, fragmented, separate things going on?
Mm.
They contradict each other. And that's the simplicity of the non-dual teaching. It's one or the other. You choose oneness or you choose separation, but you can't choose both because they completely contradict each other.
Mm. Yeah.
Creation is choosing perfect oneness. Yeah, I choose to take my awareness back to that awareness of perfect oneness
And then
and choose to be
that
the
in its
extension
yeah.
of this source.
This is what they
And
call intuition, isn't it? You start coming from that source rather than the ego source. Yeah. So like when somebody said to me, "You work very intuitively," I
hmm,
thought, "Oh, that's interesting. You saying that?" I thought, "Oh,
hmm.
is that me working from the source?" Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's quite
into means in you. So it's your deeper self, your higher
right.
self that
Hmm.
is coming through you. Intuition is just another name
It's coming from your source. Yeah. So that's interesting.
for
When she said that, I
remembrance
thought,
of
"Oh,
perfect
yeah,
love.
yeah.
We look at this intuition there.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, there's a couple of people have said that, and I thought, oh, there you go. I'm obviously coming from the source rather than the
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So people who are open to that will pick it up and say, yeah, I can perceive that. I can
Right.
experience that in you. And then you activate that in them. And that's what healers should be doing. If you don't activate that deeper self in them, you're not really healing in any sense of the word. That's the
Mm.
unhealed healer.
Hmm. Yeah.
The true healer just, well, everything I have, you have as well. Maybe you've just forgotten it. Maybe you've forgotten it a bit more than I have, but my job is to help you remember it.
Yes.
Through whatever
Well,
the
you
treatment.
work. You're working intuitively doing this.
Yeah.
Often, there's questions I ask that well, obviously I can see it's come from the source rather than Jono.
Yeah, exactly. You ask a question and I just sort of tap in and download
Yeah.
and it's not pre-rehearsed. It comes from a source it's in my mind, but it's not just the little self.
Hmm.
The little self, the little Jono character couldn't really answer those questions properly
Mm.
because it doesn't know anything. It's confused about who it is. It's identified with a separate self that's doomed to suffer and die. It's trying to understand the world from a separated perspective, and it doesn't know anything because that's not the truth. That's not reality.
Hmm. Yeah.
So anyone who's transcended that self then would typically be coming from the source. So we look at the diagram, it comes down from source, which has many names. You could call that pure formless awareness of perfect love, or source, or knowledge, or spirit, or reality. And it comes through the true self, the Christ, the Son of God, the extension, which is this teaching is calling it creation, right? The creation is the extension. So another name you might say for creation is this extension of perfect love, just another term for it, that now can translate this higher awareness into true perception or Christ's vision or intuition or healing, whatever you want to call it, and help us to experience the world of time and space, duality, very differently. Now, our experience of it is informed by the truth of oneness rather than the belief in separation. And so our decisions, our words, our actions change, and the timeline changes because we are now being guided by another source. So it's pretty straightforward. This is not a
Oh,
mystery.
yes.
When people say, "Oh, it's a great mystery, and we don't really understand, and we can never understand this stuff,"
Right in front of our nose.
when you understand it like this, and you just break it down, it's actually really simple. It's just very radical, saying, "Well, nothing that you thought was true is true. It's all false," and then that explains a whole lot. Okay, well, if it's all false, why am I bothering to try and make sense of it? Why don't I just accept that it doesn't make sense?
Mm.
You see.
Yeah, which is good to hear.
Yeah,
Glad that it's just
it
a
doesn't make
movie.
sense. So I'm not going to try and make sense of what doesn't make sense. I'm just going to accept that it doesn't make sense, that it will never make sense because it's insane. It's a delusion, and I just need to see that, and then naturally I'll let it go. When I recognize that, I will let it go, because why would I try and make sense of the insane anymore? So the relief is enormous. And when I started first understanding the course, I was like, oh, thank God, someone's actually telling the truth, finally. Because you get a whole lot of, what passes for truth in spirituality, and it's not. It's just more lies. And
Yeah.
it says, if you do this and you follow this way, and you believe this, and it's some kind of form of duality, then this is the answer, and you'll somehow find salvation. You'll find freedom, you'll find happiness, you'll find peace, you'll find love, you'll find joy. Many people still believe those teachings, and they go down that path, and then they find that they're disappointed, and that in the end they die. Everyone dies, right? So do these teachings, stop death? No. Well, then they can't be correct. The reason why we listen to Yeshua is because he resurrected. He overcame death. He overcame, the ultimate sort of program of the ego, destruction and death, and said, no, this isn't true, and I'll demonstrate it by resurrecting. Okay, that's enough credentials for me. Some people, obviously people dispute that. They say, well, how do you know he did it? Well, there was no technology like we have then. So none of this was filmed, recorded. It's just eyewitness accounts we have. But those eyewitness accounts are quite compelling. People, wrote about this. They never found the body of Jesus. Why did they never find the body? That's the question. There's no burial site for him, is there? Why did they never find his body? Why isn't there a burial site for him? Because he because he resurrected, and then he ascended. So there was no body left to bury.
I was going to say
That's why.
yeah. So the body, yeah, of course, yeah.
Because if he'd been buried, someone would have found it, wouldn't they? I mean, this great master, someone would, okay, no, actually, the great, this is all smoke and mirrors. He was actually killed, and here's his grave, and we found it. And again, the skeptics will dispute that, and so you can dispute it all you want if you choose to, or you can say, yeah, actually, there's a lot of evidence, historical evidence that this happened. This character called Yeshua existed. There's eyewitness accounts. There's historical records, in the same way as all of history has historical records. There's no evidence of the Roman Empire, of all the events that happened, other than a few relics. Like, okay, well, there's they've built a few things that still remain, but how do we know that, say, Caesar existed? And well, because we have records, because we have history. Someone wrote it down. Well, in the same way, someone wrote down an account of Yeshua's life. Well, if you're going to dispute that, you're going to dispute all of history, aren't you? So, okay, well, just because what was talked about was quite incredible doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So in the end, it comes down to, well, do you believe or not? Do you have the faith to believe it or not? And that's a choice we all must make. But if you don't believe it, then what are your alternatives? If you don't believe in some transcendent power that overcomes death and that is eternally, alive, then you must believe in death and dissolution. Those are the choices. Okay, if you want to believe in that, go for it, but you're not going to be very happy. But how can you be happy when you know that everything you're working for is going to dissolve and die?
Mm-hmm.
So this is really the only sane option. The alternative is horrendous. If you don't believe in this, then you have to believe in duality. You have to believe in suffering, in pain, in sickness, in death, in fear, in anger, in attack thoughts, all of everything that we see below the level of 200. Okay, well, if you want to believe in that and make that true, then you can, but you're not going to be very happy, that's for sure. Or you can believe in something transcendent, which all the great masters and mystics and all the models, all these maps of consciousness, all developmental systems point to the same thing. Whether you look at David Hawkins's scale, or you look at any other system, they take you to the same transcendent place. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he came to the same conclusion. There is a transcendent self that transcends all the other needs. Just a different model, but it ends up in the same place. And this is what people like Yeshua came to teach us. So we either believe or we don't. No one can prove it to you. You have to use your own reasoning, understanding, and your own experience to say, yeah, yes, there is something else, and I'm going to follow that and pursue that and go into these higher levels, or I'm going to remain stuck in, the lower levels, which many people do. Humanity, David Hawkins, humanity still below the level of 200 on average. When you calibrate humanity at 190, that's overall. So you get, some people who positive, but then the majority would have to be negative. So there's a long way to go, and these thoughts and emotions seem to be quite powerful. Many people are still in the grip of fear, desire. What powers our world economy? Fear and desire. Those two emotions dictate people's choices of what they're going to do, what they're going to buy. Very much so. I was just saying, well, there is another way. You don't have to operate through these lower levels. You can start going into the higher levels, and then the Holy Spirit will guide you, and it will guide you back to home, to the state of ineffable pure consciousness, or pure formless awareness of perfect love, as we would call it. Okay, so those are just some thoughts on that. Let's just read the summary. We won't spend long on it. And then we'll go into the lesson because I'm aware we've got about 20 minutes. Okay, so 1, 2, 4, 5. Yeah, so I'll read the first one. You read the first one, and then you'll get to do that.
Yeah. Creation or extension is the natural function of perfect love. Extension is infinite, timeless, and unchanging. For only perfect love can extend like itself. There has never been a moment when what perfect loving awareness extends did not exist, and it will remain eternally whole, perfect and untouched by illusions of loss or harm. Its awareness is all-encompassing and contains within it the power of its source, ensuring that its extensions share in this power to extend. It's just saying creation or extension are just a natural function of perfect love. It's infinite, timeless, unchanging, and there's never been a moment when this perfect loving awareness extends and did not exist, and it will remain eternally whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as an extension of perfect love, I am part of this eternal oneness. While I seem to experience separation and doubt, behind all these illusions lies the certainty of my unity with pure formless awareness of perfect love. Its memory is still in my pure mind, untainted and certain of its perfect innocence and oneness. My role is to allow this memory to return by letting go of all blocks to extension and extending perfect love to everyone. Right? So he's just saying, our job is to let go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, as Yeshua frames it in the introduction to the text, and allow this perfect love to extend to everyone through us. And then we become the healers, the miracle workers of the world, and inspire others to find that same awareness within themselves. Okay, next one.
Extension is the truth. Is that the one, or is it the one above?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just read the one above, yeah.
Extension is the truth and the opposite of all illusions. Within extension, pure formless awareness is complete, each part containing the whole, forever unified and beyond any blemish or imperfection. By remembering this truth, I am restored to sanity and fulfill my only function, which is to be as perfect loving awareness extends me. It's just saying that this truth is the opposite of illusions, and we'll be restored to sanity and fulfill our only function, which is to be the perfect loving awareness as it extends us.
Yeah. We are that awareness, and there's nothing else that we really are. And everything else is illusion. Everything else needs to be let go of. It's simple, but it's not easy to do. And that's
No, yeah, that's true.
Just stay in perfect loving awareness all day. Right. Yeah. Okay. And you're dealing with time and space and the various illusions that populate it. And then stuff comes in and you get triggered, and now you have some fear going on, or you have some anger. And then you're out of perfect loving awareness, aren't you?
Yeah, yes, and
And
that's
that's how it goes.
ongoing. Yeah.
And that's why it's difficult, because the world has been set up to perpetuate the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. It's been set up to continuously block that presence and trigger us into negative states that negate pure formless awareness of perfect love and provide the justification for that negation. That's why it's a negative world, a negative world. It's designed to negate the truth of pure formless awareness and perfect love. So if you're living in such a negative world, an upside down world, then all you can do is be really vigilant of those negations and let them go as they arise, and don't react to them, which is what letting go and forgiveness, radical forgiveness, is all about. So the theory, you see how the theory then dictates what the solution is. You don't believe the theory, you won't believe in letting go, because then it doesn't make sense. If you believe reality is the 3D world, then why would you let go? Because that's reality. You're letting go of reality. Well, if you let go of reality, then the ego is going to tell you that there'll be nothing else, that, that's the end. So you have to accept, at the same time as letting go, you're accepting the truth of what this teaching is saying. And the more you let go, the more you start to understand that truth. So letting go is the practice of understanding the truth. Okay. So my source continually calls to me. By listening to its voice, I let go of all blocks to my awareness of love. And remember that I'm part of perfect love's awareness, as everyone is. Through this remembrance, I fulfill my true purpose, which is accepting that I am pure formless awareness of perfect love. So again, saying the same thing. He says this over and over, doesn't he? He says this many times in many different ways, hundreds of times, hundreds of ways in the course, because we need to keep hearing it to remind us, okay, this is all that matters here. That am I letting go of my illusions of a separate self and attachment to this world or not? In this moment, am I letting go or not? That's the question. If I'm letting go, then that's my true purpose. I'm on purpose. I'm living my life in a surrendered way. I'm listening to the Holy Spirit, the remembrance of perfect love. All's good. If I'm not, and I'm in resistance, then I'm listening to the ego, and that's a disaster. So, I need to be aware of my thoughts and emotions all the time, because those are the two choices, and I'm making one of those choices every moment, whether I'm aware of that I'm making the choice or not. So just a thought like, oh, well, that the weather's lousy today, or oh, why is that happening? Why is that person doing that? I don't like that. It seems like an innocent thought, but that's a thought for the ego. That confirms the disaster of separation is real. So you have to be really vigilant for those thoughts, because those thoughts are what then perpetuate the illusion.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Whereas if you're aware of them, say, no, hang on. Actually, the weather's not good or bad. It just is. It's fine. It's raining. Okay. And it's raining. So what? Am I going to make a story about that? Or just, on the level of form, it's raining. And end of. Full stop.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a story about it. Or someone, did something apparently to me, okay, well, I could go into a whole story about, oh, that's terrible. Why did they do it? Is it me? Is it them? What did I do to deserve this? Why does this always happen to me? And on it goes. Then I make the separate self real in that story. Or just go, well, they came, they did that, and they left, and it's the end of, and it's over. And I'm not going to create a story about it. I'm not going to allow that to engender all kinds of negative thoughts and emotions. I'm just going to stay peaceful and happy. Pretty simple. I mean, when you explain it like this, it should be simple. Why doesn't everyone understand this? And we don't understand it because the ego is so powerful, and it's done a really good job of convincing us that its case is true, and it continuously tries. So every time you get something that upsets you, that's the ego saying, "Oh, believe me," instead of the Holy Spirit. Believe me, separation is real. React to this, get upset, and then it tells you that the world is based on separation, and it's a car crash, and what you can expect is pain, suffering, sickness, and death. And that's the choice we make all the time with how we perceive things. So it's pretty critical that we change our perception, which is why this whole course is dedicated to that one task. Let go of the negative thoughts and emotions, change your perception, and wake up, essentially. That's the awakening process. Okay, so just the key message to wrap that up, then we'll do the lesson quickly. It's only 2 paragraphs.
I am eternal extension of perfect love, forever unified and with it, and therefore unchanging. Although I may perceive separation, perfect love's memory remains in my pure mind. My purpose to let go of my blocks to the awareness of love, extend love unconditionally to everyone, and remember that I am pure form awareness of perfect love.
Yeah. So in doing this, I remember who I am. That's the point. There's a process. The more you let go, the more you extend love, the more you remember who you are. So that should be then your only function. If your only function is to remember who you are, then letting go and extending love to others should be what you dedicate your life to, shouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's really nothing else to do. And we see that in the lives of the great masters like Yeshua, the Buddha. That's what they ended up dedicating their lives to. What else is there to do? Let go of all of my own stuff, and then extend the love through me, that I now become a vessel for this divine love to extend through me and to bless and to heal others in profound ways. And then what else is there to do but do that? And that's what they dedicate their lives to. Okay, so that's what is creation. The idea is to read that every day before you do the lesson, because the lessons are very short in part 2 of the workbook. So we're on to lesson 323. Let me just start a new little bite-sized recording. Okay, so lesson 323. I gladly make the sacrifice of fear is the key idea.
And I gladly let go of all fear.
Yeah. So the sacrifice is in quotes because it's not really a sacrifice. It's trying to tell us that there is really no sacrifice in letting go of fear. The ego tells you that, but the ego is a liar.
Yeah.
So let's go into it, and he just clarifies this in the 2 paragraphs. So this is the first one, which is a short prayer. Here is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved Son. You ask him to give up all suffering, all sense of loss and sadness, all anxiety and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming into his awareness, healing him of pain and giving him your own eternal joy.
This is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved extension. You ask me to give up all suffering, sense of loss, sadness, anxiety, and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming into my awareness, healing me of pain and giving me your own eternal joy.
Such is the, quote, sacrifice you ask of me, and one I gladly make, the only, quote, cost of restoration of your memory to me for the salvation of the world.
Such is the sacrifice you ask of me, and one I gladly make as the only cost of restoration of your memory to me for the awakening of the world. From the top.
From the top.
This is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved extension. You ask me to give up all suffering, sense of loss, sadness, anxiety, and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming into my awareness, healing me of pain and giving me your own eternal joy. Such is the sacrifice you ask me, and one I gladly make as the only cost of restoration of your memory to me for the awakening of the world.
So thoughts on that?
It's just saying there's only one sacrifice. This is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved extension. So it's basically the sacrifice is to give up suffering and sadness and anxiety, and then this will allow the love come streaming into the awareness, healing us of all this pain and bringing us eternal joy. So is this really a sacrifice? We need to ask ourselves.
The ego tells you it is, but if you're letting go of pain and suffering and sickness and death, how can that be a sacrifice?
Yeah.
You're also letting go of your separate identity and the idea that you're human and life in this world. So the ego tells you that's a sacrifice, but is it really? Or is this world made out of pain, guilt, sin, fear, attack? All of these come from the idea of separation, which is why they're so entrenched. And we all struggle when we start on our journeys and we don't know the truth. We struggle to make sense of it, don't we? Like, well, why is there so much pain in the world? Why do I suffer? Why do so many people suffer? And this is supposed to be, God's supposed to be love. God created such a crazy world where there's so much pain and suffering and misery and sickness and ultimately everything dies, and yet God is love. So now how does that work? How do you reconcile those two ideas? You don't. This was Yeshua's, insight. It's like, no, you can't reconcile it. So one must be true and one is not. God is love. That means that God cannot be the architect of a world of fear and pain and suffering and misery and death. It's not possible for a loving God, loving awareness to do this. So this must then be the opposite of love. And then you have the idea of separation, the ego, the devil, evil, that now seemingly has a reality, but it's unreal. When you hold it up to perfect loving awareness, then it's evident that it can't be true because it contradicts perfect loving awareness. And now you must choose between the two. And you choose with every perception you have. Every thought, every emotion, every perception is a choice. Simple, but that's not that requires a level of understanding, of vigilance that most people don't have, and they're not willing to work at it, to cultivate that. Okay, everything I perceive, I have to change that perception. It's quite a bit of work there. If everything you perceive is false, and to overturn that,
Yeah, well, yeah,
it's
lifetimes. Yeah.
pretty. It's like, wow, that's I've got to reverse my thinking about myself and the world entirely. That's quite daunting until you just go, okay, well, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is, and best I just get on with it and just do it moment by moment. If I tackle the problem moment by moment, I can do it. Okay, moment by moment, I just need to be aware. And if I'm not aware, I can correct that and I can come back to my true awareness. Okay, well, that's doable. I can do that. And then it becomes manageable and doable if you just do it moment by moment. Okay, so second and last paragraph. And as we pay the debt we owe to truth, a debt that merely is the letting go of self-deceptions and of images we worshipped falsely, truth returns to us in wholeness and in joy.
And as I pay the debt I owe to truth, a debt that is merely the letting go of self-deceptions and images I valued falsely, truth returns to me in the wholeness and joy.
We are deceived no longer.
I am deceived no longer.
Love has now returned to our awareness.
Love has now returned to my awareness.
And we are at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains.
And I am at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains. And again. And as I pay the debt I owe to truth, a debt that is merely the letting go of self-deceptions and images I valued falsely, truth returns to me in wholeness and joy. I am deceived no longer. Love has now returned to my awareness, and I am at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains. So that's a nice paragraph.
Yeah, it's pointing us to the end of the journey. When love's returned to our awareness, there's no more fear. You've overcome the need for healing. You don't need healing anymore. You would be at that level. No fear. A fearless, completely fearless state would mean pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is you remove all the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And if there's only that pure awareness remaining, then all of this has just disappeared. You don't need a true self anymore and true perception of a world that doesn't even exist. All of this just disappears. So the Holy Spirit and the Holy Trinity, the Christ, and the true self, these are concepts that help us to escape from time, but ultimately they will be undone along with time and space. And we just rest in pure formless awareness of perfect love eternally, which is God. And then it becomes quite simple. Okay, I don't have to try and, again, reconcile the three aspects of the Holy Trinity because two of them are illusory. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The true self and the Holy Spirit are illusions, but they're useful illusions in the dream because they get you out of the dream. They collapse the dream. They take you back to God, to pure formless awareness of perfect love, but they're not ultimately true. Most Christian theologians, I've read various takes on the Holy Trinity. They don't understand that. So they're trying to somehow reconcile the Trinity and say, well, it's three, but it's one, and they're all equal, but God is greater. And only gets themselves a horrible muddle. It's a horrible mess, really. It doesn't work. Without this awareness of truth and illusion, and you make that clear distinction, then you get very confused. Whereas if you just understand the truth, then it's okay, well, the Christ, the true self, is a temporary measure. It's part of healing, but nothing in healing is eternal. once you're healed and you're back in this awareness, the fearless state, then healing isn't required. You don't need any of this anymore. You don't need to move from identifying with a separate self into the true self anymore, because that's done, accomplished. That's no longer needed. But like, if you're on a journey, when you finish the journey and you've been using, say, sat nav, you don't need the sat nav anymore. You switch it off.
Yeah.
It's annoying once you've reached your destination for sat nav to keep bleating on about, take a left. It's like, oh, I'm there. I don't need it anymore. So in the same way, I don't need a guidance system anymore when I'm home. It's done. It's accomplished. I'm at the destination. And it's an eternal destination. So I stay there forever. So I can throw away the sat nav forever. I don't need this guidance system anymore. But while you're on the journey, man, do you need the sat nav?
4 o'clock.
You're on a journey and you're lost, and you don't know where you're going, and it's dark and it's cold, and you need direction. It's like, hey, show me, where do I go, left or right? I mean, we've all been on those journeys, and you're like, thank God for sat nav, because I just don't know where I am. I wouldn't have a clue otherwise. I remember the days before sat nav. I came to the UK nearly 30 years ago now, before sat nav, and we were trying to navigate our way around, and it's just like, oh my goodness. We get lost in the mist. We had to take a detour because one of the A roads was blocked, and then we went into these country roads, and we're trying to navigate by maps. It was horrendous. You don't know where you are, and it's misty, so we couldn't actually, it's like, oh, there's a turn, we just missed it. We have no idea. Somehow we managed, but we were like 2 hours late. So in the same way, we need the guidance system while we're here. And that's why he teaches it to us, saying, well, you need a guidance system. You need the sat nav while you're here. So I'm going to teach you how to get really good at listening to that guidance. Ultimately, when you reach your destination, because the guidance system has worked, you don't need the guidance system anymore. And you transcended it, which is the state he's pointing to here. We're deceived no longer. Love has returned to our awareness. We're at peace again, for fear is gone and only love remains. And he's talking then about a level 1 awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, so any other thoughts or comments or questions on that, Elaine? Otherwise, it's after 4 now. You wanted to finish at 4.
Yeah,
so
no, I'll have to, because I need to prepare
we can end it there. If you want to do a meditation, I have sent you one.
Okay, I'll do it.
Posted it to the group this morning. It's in the email as well, so you can do that this evening on your own.
Yeah, we'll do.
And stay in flow until I see you next, which will be tomorrow. If you like, we could do a session tomorrow afternoon. Does that work? Or
yeah, same sort of time. Yes. Yeah, I've got a few things to do in the morning. Yeah, that should be fine.
Yeah, we can do tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, that's good.
2:00.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
See you then.
Lovely. Okay, namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye. Okay, so that is a wrap for today. Thank you to Elaine for joining the session. And if you enjoyed that, then a couple of things you can do to take another step in the direction of healing. Firstly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that, and you'll be notified whenever I go live, which will be 3 or 4 times a week during the course of this year. And I'll be posting some other videos. We're about just over a month. We're starting the program, 1-year program again. So I'll be posting some videos about that. So sign up to the channel. You can also go to lifebuild.com and you can get the daily inspirational quote. I showed you one of those at the beginning of the session, along with some commentary on it, kind of a blog post, along with the mind training lesson for the day from A Course in Miracles in its original alternative form, as you just saw us doing it. There's also some reading from the text or the Manual for Teachers, or now we're on the supplements, the Psychology, Purpose, Processes and Practices supplement. So it's the entire course that we go through in original alternative form. You can get all that as well as notifications about these live sessions and an invitation to join on Zoom completely free at lifebuild.com. So check it out, sign up and join our Telegram group. I hope to connect with you on the inside of the group or one of these sessions soon. So thanks for listening and watching, and namaste, which means the true self in me acknowledges and honors that same true self or Christ self in you. Bye for now.